Hey, it's your old pal Lucid Stu again, and this is Stu's News, a review of American high-speed rail happenings over the last month. In this May 2025 episode, we'll take a look at what went down in April. This episode of Stu's News is sponsored by the High-Speed Rail Alliance. The High-Speed Rail Alliance is a people-powered nonprofit working to bind the nation and build stronger communities with great trains. The High-Speed Rail Alliance helps advocates, business leaders, and civic leaders understand what an American rail revolution could be and how to make it happen. If you want American high-speed trains, get on board with the High-Speed Rail Alliance. Check out the link to get involved. Now to Acela, the NEC, and the biggest news of the month. The Trump administration has announced it will take over the $7 billion New York Penn Station reconstruction from the New York Metropolitan Transit Authority and hand it over to Amtrak, which owns the station. It is claimed the move will save $120 million, although no specifics were given how. Also, no specifics on what this means for the project, but the odds it involves neoclassical columns went up by about 1,000%. As you will recall, MTA and Amtrak received $145 million combined in FSP NEC grants for the station last year. This project aims to renovate and reconfigure the station within its existing footprint. A planned expansion of the station, taking advantage of new Hudson River tunnels to meet 2040 traffic goals, would be undetermined billions more. New York Penn Station is currently the busiest train station in North America. On the other side of the Hudson in New Jersey, the Trump administration announced they had also trimmed $140 million from the cost of the rehabilitation of the dock bridge over the Passaic River. This is an effort to extend the life of a 90-year-old movable bridge that carries 6 NEC tracks into Newark Penn Station. Details are once again light, but the administration indicated savings would come from deferring some less necessary maintenance and ditching some planned aesthetic lighting. Speaking of New Jersey, NJ Transit and Amtrak released another joint update on their efforts to increase reliability on the NEC in the Garden State. The two agencies have been up to quite a bit the last 9 months and are looking to tighten up the corridor prior to summer. You'll recall last summer there were some notable outages that caused New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy to blow a fuse. No one wants a repeat of that, so plenty of near-term work is planned, the most significant of which appears to be catenary replacement between Elizabeth and Rahway. That will cause outages of its own, but better planned when it's quiet than unplanned when it's busy. Back on the other side of the Hudson between New York City and New Haven, Connecticut, MTA Metro North has announced it has slashed 10 minutes off travel time between the two cities in some cases. This is now 3 minutes faster than even Acela, but the Metro North route, which currently terminates at Grand Central Station, is 3 miles shorter than Amtrak to New York Penn, so Metro North really should be faster by a hair. These time improvements were achieved through scheduling efficiencies afforded by positive train control and new signaling. On to some infrastructure. A couple of project timelines have slipped into public view. First, for the Susquehanna River Bridge in Maryland. Crews have begun geotechnical and utility investigation, same thing Brightline West has been doing the last year, trying to get to 100% design. It appears that will wrap up early next year and that heavy construction will begin at that time, finally completing in 2036. Number 2 is the Connecticut River Bridge, currently in Phase 1 of construction, which is building the actual structure. In Phase 2 and 3, tracks will be added in 2028 and 2029, with planned opening of the new bridge in early 2029. More construction updates from the Gateway program on X. The Tunnelly Avenue Bridge outside the east entrance to the new Hudson tunnels is now 71% complete, up from 66% last month. There is also a progress update on the New Jersey side of the tunnels. and prep work for the portion under the Hudson. Also on X, Alstom announcing Acela 2 set number 21 is out the door in Hornell, New York. 7 to go. This announcement comes 4 weeks after number 20. They're starting to crank them out. But we're now a month into spring. When will they enter service? The Amtrak ridership reports are late again this month, so they'll have to wait until June. That's all for Acela and the NEC. We'll head for the West Coast, but stop by in Texas to see what's cooking. Another Trump administration move, Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy,
who doesn't want to go to Las Vegas,
announced that a $64 million corridor ID grant awarded to Texas Central Railway last September has been rescinded. That appears to pull the project out of the corridor ID process. Amtrak was also directed to withdraw from the project as a sponsor, so TCR is basically back where it was this time last year, which was deep in the weeds. But hope is not completely lost. During testimony in the Texas State Legislature, it was revealed that longtime investor John Kleinheinz had taken the reins and bought out the Japanese interest in the project. They're still planning to use Shinkansen track and train systems tech though for some reason. Japanese reaction to the news was far less optimistic. With the state against them, a $30 to $40 billion price tag looming, no federal help, and economic conditions that have Brightline West struggling to get a hold of $6 billion, it's not looking good for TCR. On a related note, the cities of Fort Worth and Arlington have decided to commission an economic study related to Dallas-Fort Worth high-speed transportation. This is a 30-mile high-speed line that would hook up with Texas Central at the Texas Central Dallas station. Not only do you have the wrinkle of Texas Central tanking here, but the city of Dallas is already doing an economic study for DFW HST. I swear if they can't build them, they sure can study them to death. That's a perfect segue for Cascadia high-speed rail, but sorry, no news in the Pacific Northwest. We'll head for California high-speed rail instead. We have California high-speed rail CEO Ian Chowdhury claiming that high-speed track laying in the Central Valley has been moved up by a year. He also stated at a recent event that buying rail directly from manufacturers rather than through a track and systems contractor would save the project 15 to 20% on those costs. Also, by the sound of things in this Fresno Bee article, train set procurement might be delayed. In pretty positive news, the authority settled its dispute with the city of Millbrae over the configuration of the California high-speed rail station there. Basically, California high-speed rail wanted to build a needlessly extravagant station, and Millbrae wanted more room for dense housing next to the station. Sounds like Millbrae won out, which is probably a win for both in the long run. That should be the last piece of litigation the project has to deal with, at least until the environmental impact study is done for the LA to Anaheim section. Speaking of stations, the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority released the draft environmental impact statement for their Madera station. Nothing new with the station really, more a process update than anything else. If you don't know, the Madera station is planned in the middle of nowhere, pictured here. The SJJPA is developing the station independently of the California High-Speed Rail Authority, but plans to have its various phases ready for service by the time California High-Speed Rail is ready to run trains through it. More station news with a late addition, the California High-Speed Rail Authority putting out an update ahead of their vote on the request to advance to notice to proceed to for station design in the Central Valley. According to this document, they will be looking to phase the stations. In the first phase, the stations would be cut down to 2 tracks with shorter, narrower platforms and minimal amenities. They'll also be looking to cut down on viaduct height, presumably only in Merced and Bakersfield, since the Fresno station will be at ground level and the columns for the Kings Tulare station are already built. It appears that the plan now is to only expand those stations to 4 tracks when Phase 1 Anaheim to San Francisco is completed. However, it should be emphasized that no timeline exists for Phase 1 completion, and who knows what decisions will be made 20 or 30 years from now when that would be considered. I wanted to quickly touch on that. Seems like bad news, but I will have more to say once the board meeting occurs on May 1st. With that, let's look at the Central Valley construction progress. Keep in mind these reports run 2 months behind and the data is for February. Capital outlay budget summary, $85.2 million expended, crappy again. You can see they're 8 months into the fiscal year, have only spent $900 million and are $1.07 billion behind a decapitated budget that was $2.6 billion. Preliminary numbers have them at $150 million for March. That would leave them needing to average $300 million each of the remaining 3 months of the fiscal year just to hit budget for the year, and I don't recall them ever getting above the low 200s in a month. Design build expenditures. It'll be more next month, let's move on. Average daily site workers back over 1,500, so they're set to have a lot of people on site going into the busy season. Construction progress. This is a big change from last month in terms of schedule. You can see they've added 11 miles of guideway by the end of the year, so maybe we're finally looking at a schedule with some ambition again. Progress in February in terms of new elements underway or complete was 0. Construction packages 2-3 overview completion has been delayed by 6 months. Unless the new CEO is a magician, that probably means they're going over budget again. Speaking of that, I've been wondering why there suddenly isn't any risk contingency drawdown, and then I noticed that they have nearly $250 million in outstanding vendor disputes. Who knows how those will be resolved, but that's equivalent to 15% of the risk contingency they have left through 2026. CP1 earned value chart. This indicates a schedule performance index of 0.94, but there's some rounding happening, and that's very close to 0.93, which means progress is still decreasing. You can see that from the earned value curve, where it looks like it's almost flatlining at 78%. This should get better with the March numbers, but we'll see. That's all for California High-Speed Rail. While we're on the West Coast, let's check in with Brightline West. A slow month. On April 9th, I went out to Las Vegas to increase my before footage of the route and see if anything is happening. Here I am in Sloan, Nevada at the future Brightline West Vehicle Maintenance and Operations Facility. This is likely where the first signs of construction will occur. Nothing happening out there or anywhere I checked. Brightline in Florida, also pretty slow. The $6 million Sunshine Corridor study to potentially extend Brightline from Orlando International Airport to Interstate 4 was officially approved by the Sunrail Board. This is a project development and environment study, which is the local Florida equivalent of an environmental impact study. The thing is, they already know they want to build it and where they want to build it, so this will result in 2 years of paper shuffling for $6 million. The industrial study complex at work. Let's look at some Brightline numbers. Ridership is up 8% year over year at 280,000 trips for March. That's about a 3% increase month over month when compensating for the difference in number of days. It's creeping forward considering the recent capacity expansions. Speaking of that, Brightline is reporting that they've received more Siemens Venture carriages, making Brightline trains 6 cars long now. Those arrived at the end of the month, so we'll see what the impact is next month. You can also see from the title of this piece that they're complaining in Florida about commuter passes not being reinstated despite Brightline getting federal money for it. I suspect that will come back soon now that capacity is 50% greater and ridership isn't. That's all for Florida. Let's switch over to the Midwest and see what's going on with the Illinois High-Speed Rail Commission and our old friend, the Chicago Hub Network. The commission is wrapping up their route alternatives analysis and had some good slides in the latest presentation, so I wanted to show those. Here we can see the factors they're trying to balance, and then stuff like this should look familiar to viewers of this channel. A good example of the constraint that an interstate median imposes, and that it's possible to do better mostly within the interstate right-of-way, but then you have additional impacts. Not a huge deal out in the country, but that can get expensive in urban and suburban areas. And then an example of hypothetical interaction with an interchange at speed, and a similar example in practice from the Class 7 Brightline extension between Cocoa and Orlando. One last slide showing options to enter Joliet, Illinois from the south. It's interesting to see what they're constrained by. In the case of a Joliet option, these are all rail routes through the existing station. And then comparing that to the potential route alignments graphic, most of the options from that point south would be greenfield, interestingly enough. Looks more likely to stick to existing infrastructure if they enter the Chicago area at University Park. That'll do it for Chicago Hub Network, but while we're in the Midwest, let's check out Ohio. A budget proposal to fund Ohio rejoining the Midwest Interstate Passenger Rail Commission has made it through the Ohio House of Representatives and is up for consideration in the Senate. Last year, Ohio received 4 Corridor ID grants. Many of those are part of the Chicago Hub Network and the FRA's Midwest Plan. All of that combined doesn't mean bullet trains, but 110 miles per hour coordinated with other states would be a possibility. And who knows, maybe a 3C plus D corridor at 200 miles per hour is still somewhere in Ohio's distant future. And besides, you know who's a big fan of Ohio? Plus, your future president JD has to make up for dropping Ohio State's championship trophy and cursing them for 1,000 years. But that's all for the news. Let's check out Stu's Boo Boos, where I go over everything I missed or got wrong last month. First off, the April Fool's Boo Boo. There wasn't one. April Fool. Thanks to everyone who participated. You all did a great job making mountains of molehills. I enjoyed that one. Unfortunately, I'll have to come up with something different next year. Also unfortunate, there were actual boo-boos, the big one being this Stugibra graphic. I put the years for the wrong timeline on there. This is California High-Speed Rail's timeline. For Cascadia, that should be 2016 to 2029, but the 13 years is correct. That's the type of error that happens while trying to wrap up a video at 4 a.m. Big thanks to commenter Riley Hengel 1100 for catching that one first. Another one. Our resident Florida man and Brightline expert Gregory 596 rightfully corrected me on some bad math. Expanding from 4 coaches to 5 is a 25% capacity jump and not 20. While minor, that is important because we are comparing that to ridership increases to gauge how much capacity was previously constraining demand for Brightline. I believe that's 2 now for Gregory 596. He might be our first multiple Gold Star recipient. I'll have to look into that. And another one. In February, the Fresno Council of Governments put out a request for proposal for a feasibility study on a quote zero-emission cross-valley rail line that would hook up with California High-Speed Rail at Fresno. It doesn't look like this will be high speed itself, but it would be relevant to California High-Speed Rail, so it certainly fits, and I missed it. Thanks to Stew Crew enjoyer Inland Urbanist for pointing that one out. Also, do us a favor and check out their YouTube channel, would you kindly? So that brings your Gold Star total to 22. It's a bust. I'm still at 6 silver stars for a boo-boo free month. Also, if you find a boo-boo in this presentation or something I missed, let me know in the comments. If it's a good one, you win a prize. Big thanks to the Stew Crew Discord channel for all of their assistance. If you'd like to join our motley crew, check out the invite in the description. An additional big thanks to the High Speed Rail Alliance for sponsoring this video. Make sure to check them out and become a member if you're interested in advocating for high-speed trains in the United States. Plenty more videos are in the pipeline. Up next, We'll look at an alternative to current plans for Dallas-Fort Worth high-speed transportation that might have a better chance at being implemented in a post-Texas Central Railway world. But that's all for now. Until next time, I'll see you on that big, beautiful freeway!